Imagine waking up in 1862, not in your cozy bed, but on a bed of straw in a filthy Civil War camp. You volunteered for glory, but what you get is a brutal fight for survival against disease, starvation, and soul-crushing boredom, where bullets are the least of your worries. Could you endure the true cost of being a Civil War soldier? You think you know about the Civil War soldier? Let me tell you something. Everything you've seen in movies is a lie. The glory, the honor, the noble sacrifice. Nope. Signing up as a Civil War soldier was literally signing your own death certificate. And the crazy part, dying in battle was actually the lucky way out. For every soldier shot by the enemy, 2 more died, curled up in their own filth, their bodies eaten alive by disease so gruesome that modern doctors would need therapy just from reading about it. The average Civil War soldier spent less than 10 days of his service actually fighting. The other hundreds of days he was either marching until his feet bled through his disintegrating shoes or lying in a camp where typhoid, dysentery, and smallpox were passing through tents faster than gossip. About 2/3 of the 620,000 soldiers who died in the Civil War weren't killed by bullets or bayonets. They were murdered by microscopic enemies their bodies never saw coming. The truth is, when a young man put on that uniform, blue or gray, he wasn't just risking death. He was signing up for a daily gauntlet of survival against starvation, exposure, disease, and soul-crushing boredom that would make prison seem like a vacation. So yeah, your great-great-grandpa who fought at Gettysburg, he wasn't just brave for facing bullets. He was superhuman for surviving everything else the war threw at him. So, how long would you last if you woke up tomorrow as a Civil War soldier? Would you be one of the few who made it home? Or would you join the countless thousands who died without ever seeing a battle, your body dumped in an unmarked grave, your name misspelled on some forgotten roster? Let's find out. Your eyes snap open to darkness. For a second, you think you're still in your bed, but something's wrong. The mattress beneath you isn't memory foam. It's a thin layer of straw on hard-packed dirt. The smell hits you next. Body odor from dozens of unwashed men mixed with wood smoke and the sickly sweet stench of the latrine trench just 50 yards away. It's 1862. You're in a Union Army training camp outside Washington, D.C. And you've just made the biggest mistake of your short life. You volunteered to fight in the Civil War. Rise and shine, ladies, a voice bellows through the darkness. Fall in for roll call in 5 minutes or you'll be scrubbing latrines with your toothbrush. You sit up in your bunk, your back already aching. Around you, 30 other men groan and curse as they fumble for their clothes. Unlike your soft, warm bed back home in 2025, this wooden platform barely fits your body. The thin wool blanket covering you is scratchy and offers almost no protection against the morning chill. Your whole body feels stiff. And you've only been here one night. Jesus, this ain't what I signed up for, mutters the kid next to you. A farm boy from Ohio who can't be more than 16. In the dim light from the single lantern hanging from the center pole of the tent, you can see he's shivering. Ma's cows sleep better than this. You know what's weird? He's actually one of the lucky ones. Unlike the thousands of other new recruits sleeping on the bare ground with nothing but their coats for pillows. At least you've got a tent. First day of being a hero, says an older man across the tent, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Wait till you boys taste the food. That'll really make you feel special. You pull on your new uniform, a wool coat and trousers in dark blue that are simultaneously too big in some places and too small in others. The fabric is so rough it feels like it's exfoliating your skin. And despite being fresh from the quartermaster, it already smells like chemicals and sweat. Speaking of the uniform, let me paint you a picture. These weren't the tailored, perfectly fitted outfits you see in Hollywood movies. The Union Army ordered uniforms in just 4 sizes: small, medium, large, and extra large. Imagine trying to fit every single body type in America into just 4 sizes of clothing. The result, almost nobody had a uniform that actually fit. You see a short, skinny guy across the tent with sleeves that hang past his fingertips and pants he has to hold up with suspenders and a belt. Meanwhile, the burly blacksmith 2 bunks down looks like he's wearing his little brother's clothes, the buttons of his jacket straining against his chest, the pants ending awkwardly above his ankles. Move your asses, the sergeant's voice cuts through your observations. The union ain't paying you to admire yourselves. You stumble outside into the pre-dawn chill, joining a ragged line of other recruits. The training camp stretches out before you. A vast city of white canvas tents arranged in neat rows. Smoke rising from cook fires as far as the eye can see. It's actually impressive. Like an entire town that sprouted overnight. What's not impressive is the smell. Thousands of men living in close quarters with minimal sanitation creates an odor that's almost visible. The latrines are just trenches dug downwind of camp, hopefully. And bathing is an occasional luxury, not a daily habit. Your nostrils burn with the mixture of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, horse manure, and the sweet-sour stench of sickness that already hangs over parts of the camp. Name, barks a tired-looking officer with a clipboard. You give your name, and he checks it off with barely a glance. You're just another body to him, another statistic waiting to happen. Company K, 140th Regiment, he says, pointing you toward a group of equally bewildered-looking men. You join them just as the sun begins to peek over the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp. The day is beginning, and with it, your first real taste of army life. All right, you sorry lot, a weathered sergeant addresses your group. His face is tan leather, creased by sun and hardship. Today you learn how to be soldiers. Most of you won't be worth a damn for weeks, but we don't have weeks. The Rebs aren't waiting for you to get comfortable. He walks down the line, eyeing each of you like your livestock at auction. Forget everything you think you know about war, he continues. It ain't glorious. It ain't quick. And it sure as hell ain't fair. Your job is simple. Do exactly what I say, exactly when I say it. That's how you stay alive. The man next to you whispers, "My pa said we'd whip the Rebs in a month and be home for harvest." The sergeant's hearing is apparently better than you expected. He stops directly in front of the whisperer, his nose inches from the terrified recruit's face. "Your pa ever been to war, boy?" he asks, his voice dangerously soft. No, Sergeant," the recruit stammers. "Then your pa doesn't know shit," the sergeant replies. "None of you do, but you will learn, those of you that live anyway." And with that cheerful introduction, your training begins. The next few hours are a blur of marching formations and more marching. Left foot, right foot, turn, about face. The sergeant screams corrections at anyone who missteps, which is pretty much everyone. Your shoulders ache from holding your rifle at the proper angle. Your feet throb in boots that weren't made for your specific feet because in the 1860s there's no such thing as left and right shoes. Both boots are identical, and they only take the shape of your feet after weeks of painful breaking in. Wait, you didn't know that? Yeah. Civil War soldiers' boots were completely symmetrical. Imagine wearing two left shoes, except they're both actually neither shoes, and they're made of stiff leather with wooden soles and zero cushioning. By the end of your first day of training, you'll have blisters on blisters. By mid-morning, your stomach is growling. Breakfast was coffee so bitter it made your eyes water and a rock-hard square of what the others called hardtack, a simple cracker made of flour and water that could break your teeth if you bit into it directly. You watched in disgust as experienced soldiers softened theirs in coffee or crumbled it into their tin cups. "Don't complain," an older volunteer told you when he saw your expression. "Wait till we're in the field and that hardtack got worms in it. Then you'll really have something to whine about." "Worms?" you'd asked, hoping he was joking. "Weevils," he'd explained with a grim smile. "Little bugs that live in the flour. After a few weeks, they hatch. Hardtack gets so infested sometimes that it will crawl around on its own." He'd laughed at your horrified expression. "Extra protein, son. You'll learn to be grateful for it when your belly is empty enough." Now, as the sun climbs higher, you begin to understand what real training means. It's not just learning to march or fire a rifle. It's learning to function while your body screams for rest. It's ignoring the blisters forming on your feet. The sweat soaking through your wool uniform in the rising heat. The thirst that parches your throat as water becomes a carefully rationed commodity. You think this is hard, the sergeant barks as several recruits begin to lag. Wait till you're marching 20 miles a day with full pack in Virginia summer heat. Wait till you haven't slept in 3 days because the Rebs keep probing your lines. This is a Sunday stroll compared to what's coming. The morning drags on. An endless cycle of marching, forming lines, presenting arms, and marching again. By noon, your arms feel like lead weights, and every muscle in your legs is trembling. The wool uniform that seemed merely uncomfortable at dawn is now a personal torture device trapping heat against your skin until you're marinating in your own sweat. But the real shock comes when training pauses for the midday meal. Dinner, someone calls, and there's a rush toward the cook fires. You join the line, tin plate and cup in hand, hoping for something substantial after the morning's exertion. What you get is a ladle of salt pork swimming in its own grease, another piece of hardtack, and more of that bitter coffee. This, you're learning, is the standard fare of a Union soldier. Monotonous, barely nutritious, and utterly unappetizing. Better get used to it, says the Ohio farm boy as he sits beside you. His face is red from exertion and sunburn. My brother wrote from the front that sometimes this is all they get for days. When they're lucky, they find a farm and requisition some fresh food. Requisition, you ask, trying to choke down the salt pork, which tastes like someone boiled leather in salt water. Steal, he clarifies with a small smile. Though, don't let the officers hear you call it that. As you force yourself to eat the unappetizing meal, knowing you'll need the energy for the afternoon's training, you overhear snippets of conversation from the men around you. They're from all walks of life, these volunteers, farmers, clerks, blacksmiths, factory workers. Some are immigrants who barely speak English. Others are from families that have been in America for generations. All of them thought they knew what they were signing up for. All of them are realizing, just like you, how wrong they were. My wife's going to have the baby before I even see battle, a young man says, his voice a mixture of pride and sadness. Better hope we're home by then, his companion replies. My cousin joined up last year. Said they promised it'd be over in 3 months. He's still in Virginia, and half his company's dead from camp fever. Camp fever, you ask before you can stop yourself. The men look at you, clearly a fresh fish who doesn't know anything. Typhoid, one explains, runs through the camps like wildfire. That or dysentery, men dropping dead without ever seeing a rebel. My uncle was at Bull Run, another recruit adds. Said more men in his company died from sickness than bullets. Said you'd see a man healthy at breakfast and being buried by supper. A chill runs through you despite the midday heat. You hadn't considered this aspect of war, the invisible enemies that kill more effectively than any Confederate sharpshooter. The conversation is cut short as the sergeants begin bellowing for the afternoon formation. With a groan, you rise to your feet, muscles protesting, and rejoin your company. The morning was just a warm-up, it seems. As the afternoon brings more intense drills, you learn the basics of loading and firing your rifle. A complex multi-step process that needs to become second nature. Bite the cartridge, pour the powder, ram the ball, place the cap, aim, fire. Under ideal conditions, a good soldier might get off 3 shots in a minute. Under battle conditions, with smoke obscuring vision and fear pumping through veins, most men manage far fewer. Too slow, the sergeant shouts as you fumble with a percussion cap. Every second you waste is another second for a Reb to put a ball through your skull. By late afternoon, your hands are blackened with gunpowder. Your shoulders ache from the rifle's recoil, and your ears ring from the repeated firing. When the bugle finally signals the end of training for the day, you nearly collapse with relief. But the day isn't over. There are still chores, wood to gather for fires, equipment to clean, letters to write home while there's still daylight. The camp buzzes with activity as thousands of men perform these evening rituals. You sit outside your tent, rubbing your sore muscles, watching the camp transform in the fading light. Campfires begin to twinkle across the vast expanse, their smoke creating a haze that catches the sunset. Men gather in groups, talking, playing cards, singing. In another context, it might almost seem festive. The farm boy from Ohio, you've learned his name is Thomas, sits beside you, paper and pencil in hand. Writing to your mother, you ask. He nods. trying to figure out how to tell her about this place without worrying her. Are you going to tell her about the food, you joke? He smiles faintly. No, she'd be on the next train with a basket of fried chicken and cornbread. His smile fades. I'm not telling her about the sickness either, or what the sergeant said about our chances. You're both quiet for a moment, listening to the sounds of the camp, men's voices, occasional laughter, the strains of a fiddle somewhere in the distance. Why'd you join up? Thomas asks suddenly. It's a question you've been asking yourself all day. In this moment, with your body aching and the realities of war beginning to sink in, the patriotic fervor that supposedly drove men to enlist seems distant and naive. Seemed like the right thing to do, you answer vaguely. He nods as if that makes perfect sense. I couldn't stay on the farm while other men were fighting. Wouldn't be right. He looks down at his half-written letter. Though I'm starting to think Pa was right about waiting for the draft. Might have had a few more months of Ma's cooking. As darkness falls completely, the bugle sounds again. Time for evening roll call and then sleep. You rise stiffly, already dreading another night on the hard bunk, another dawn of training. The sergeant moves down the line, checking names, making sure no one has deserted after their first taste of army life. When he's done, he addresses the company. You all did passably today, he says, which seems to be high praise from him. Remember what you learned. Practice your drills. Rest well. Tomorrow will be harder. With that cheerful thought, you're dismissed to your tents. As you lie on your bunk, staring up at the canvas ceiling, listening to the sounds of men settling in around you, reality truly begins to sink in. This is your life now. The hard bunk, the terrible food, the exhausting training, and you haven't even left camp yet. Ahead lies the march to the front, the terror of battle, the risk of wounds and disease. The comfortable bed you woke up in this morning, back in your real life, seems like a distant dream. Thomas is already snoring softly beside you, his body too exhausted to stay awake despite the discomfort. Others are whispering, playing quiet card games by lantern light, writing one more paragraph to loved ones. You close your eyes, trying to find a position that doesn't press on a new bruise or sore muscle. Tomorrow will come all too soon with its bugle call and shouting sergeants and endless drills. But for now, in this brief moment of rest, you wonder, will you be one of the ones who survives this war? Or will you become just another statistic, another name on a regiment's casualty list? As sleep finally begins to claim you, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Survival here isn't just about avoiding enemy bullets. It's about enduring day after day, hardship after hardship. The true test of a Civil War soldier wasn't just courage in battle. It was the grim determination to keep going when every part of you wanted to give up. And tomorrow, your real test begins. The bugle tears through your dreams like a bayonet. Your body physically hurts from yesterday's drills, but there's no time to ease into wakefulness. The sergeant is already barking orders before your eyes fully open. On your feet, you miserable excuses for soldiers. Sun's already wasting daylight while you're lying there like pampered house cats. It's your second day in camp, and your muscles scream in protest as you roll off the hard bunk. The kid next to you, Thomas, you remember, looks even worse. His hands are blistered from yesterday's rifle drills, and his face is sunburned to a painful-looking red. I can't feel my legs, he mutters, wincing as he pulls on his boots. Better numb than gone, replies an older volunteer, already dressed and rolling his blanket with practiced efficiency. My cousin lost both his at Shiloh. Great shot. Said he felt them burn for weeks after they were buried somewhere in Tennessee. And that's your good morning greeting in the Union Army. You stumble outside, blinking in the harsh dawnlight. The camp is already alive with activity. Thousands of men performing their morning routines with varying degrees of efficiency. Smoke rises from hundreds of cooking fires as the company cooks prepare the morning meal, if you can call it that. Fall in for roll call, the sergeant shouts, and you join the ragged line forming in front of your tent. Names are called, responses given. 2 men from another company are missing, deserted in the night, someone whispers. You're not entirely surprised. After just one day, the romantic notion of soldiering has given way to the harsh reality of military life, and you haven't even faced combat yet. After roll call comes breakfast. That bitter black coffee again, another piece of hardtack, and a thin slice of salt pork that's more fat than meat. You watch as veterans soften their hardtack in coffee, and you follow suit. It's still barely edible, but at least now it won't break your teeth. First day wasn't so bad, was it? Asks a soldier sitting next to you. He's older than most, maybe in his 30s, with a thick beard and knowing eyes. Name's Miller. Been in since '61. Not what I expected, you admit, trying to chew a particularly stubborn piece of hardtack. Miller laughs. None of us expected this. We all thought we'd march off to one big battle, whip the rebs, and be home by Christmas. He sips his coffee, grimacing at the taste. That was 2 Christmases ago. How do you stand it, you ask before you can stop yourself. Miller considers this, scratching his beard. You get used to some things. The food never gets better, though. Here's a tip. Save some of that salt pork fat. It's good for greasing your boots and rifle. Keeps them from rusting. You look down at the greasy mess on your plate with new appreciation. It's not just bad food. It's multi-purpose bad food. The morning brings more drills, but today there's a new element, working as a unit. Your company forms lines, practices marching in formation, and learns the basics of battlefield maneuvers. The importance becomes clear quickly. In the chaos of battle, these formations are your lifeline, the only hope of functioning amid the smoke and terror. Tighten that line, the sergeant bellows as your company attempts to march in step. In battle, a gap in the line is where the enemy breaks through. A gap in the line means dead men. By mid-morning, sweat pours down your face. The wool uniform that seemed merely uncomfortable yesterday is now a personal torture device. It's like wearing a blanket in a steam room. The coarse fabric chafes against your skin wherever it touches, and the areas where it doesn't are soaked with sweat. Wool uniforms in summer, mutters the man next to you during a brief water break. Whoever thought of that never had to wear one. The blue shows the blood less, replies another soldier. Trust me, that matters more than you think. Not the most comforting thought as you gulp down warm water from your canteen. After the morning drills, your company is assigned to fatigue duty, the endless chores that keep a military camp functioning. Today it's latrine duty, your task, digging new trenches for the camp toilets. Let me paint you a picture of Civil War sanitation because it's not what you're imagining. The latrines are just long trenches dug about 100 yards downwind of camp. No buildings, no privacy, just trenches with logs laid across them for soldiers to sit on. When a trench fills up, it's covered with dirt, and a new one is dug. Rebs can smell our camp before they see it, jokes one of the veterans as you dig. Might as well send up a flag saying Yankees here. The stench is horrific, especially in the growing heat of the day. Several men vomit as they dig, which only adds to the miasma. You breathe through your mouth, trying not to gag, focusing on the mechanical motion of shovel into earth, dirt into pile. You know what the real killer in this army is? Asks Miller, who's digging beside you. When you shake your head, he points to the trenches. This right here. Typhoid, dysentery, cholera. They kill more of us than rebel bullets. Men drinking downstream from where other men. It's a wonder any of us are still alive. You look at the dirty hands holding your shovel. Think about the food you ate this morning, prepared by men with equally dirty hands. And suddenly the combat death rate seems almost merciful compared to the slow death of disease. By noon, you're back at the company street, the space between rows of tents that serves as your unit's gathering place. The afternoon is devoted to weapons training, learning to clean and maintain your rifle. This, at least, seems practical, though the intricate process of maintaining a Civil War-era firearm is far more complex than you imagined. Your rifle is your wife now, the sergeant explains, pacing before the company. You care for it better than you care for yourself. You clean it when it's dirty. You oil it when it's dry. You protect it from rain and mud. Because when the shooting starts, a fouled rifle is a death sentence. Yours. The process is meticulous. Each part must be cleaned, oiled, and inspected. The slightest rust or debris could cause a misfire at the critical moment. As you work, Miller shows you tricks that aren't in the official manual: how to use coffee to clean the barrel when proper supplies run out, how to tell if your percussion caps are still good, how a cork stopper can keep moisture out of the barrel during rainy marches. Learned all this the hard way, he says as he demonstrates how to properly fold a cleaning patch. First battle I was in, my rifle misfired 3 times. Thought I was going to die with a useless piece of iron in my hands. As the afternoon wears on, you notice a commotion at the edge of camp. A wagon has arrived, surrounded by excited men. Mail call, someone shouts, and there's an immediate rush toward the wagon. The company clerk stands with a stack of letters, calling out names. When your name isn't called, you feel a surprising pang of disappointment, even though you logically know there's been no time for a letter to reach you. Thomas, however, receives a thick envelope that makes his face light up. From Ma, he says, clutching it like treasure. Probably wrote it before I even left home. Mail, you're quickly learning, isn't just communication. It's a lifeline. You see how men's faces transform when their names are called, how they retreat to private corners to devour words from home. The lucky ones share cookies, dried fruit, or other treats sent by loving families. The unlucky ones stare at the ground, trying to hide their disappointment. One soldier tears open his letter, reads the first few lines, and his face crumples. He walks away quickly, trying to hide his tears. Bad news, Miller explains quietly. Happens all the time. Life doesn't stop while we're away. People get sick. Farms fail. Wives find other men. Some days I think the mail wagon brings more misery than the battlefield. After mail call comes another round of drilling, then evening mess. Beans today, a welcome change from salt pork, though they're undercooked and bland. As the sun begins to set, you finally have your first real free time since arriving. Some men write letters, hunched over makeshift desks. Others play cards, using hardtack crumbs as poker chips. A fiddle starts up somewhere down the company street, and a small group forms, singing songs from home. You sit outside your tent, muscles aching, watching the camp settle into evening rhythms. Despite the discomfort, the dreariness, there's something fascinating about this temporary city of men. Every state in the Union is represented here, every trade and profession, every walk of life. Ohio boys are organizing a baseball game tomorrow if we don't march, Thomas says, sitting beside you. Do you play? Before you can answer, shouting erupts from a nearby tent. 2 men square off, fists raised, while others rush to separate them. Jenkins said Richmond would fall by August, explains a spectator to the gathering crowd. Patterson called him a damn fool optimist. The fight is quickly broken up by a corporal, both men sent to cool off on opposite sides of camp. But the incident highlights the tension that simmers beneath the surface: boredom, frustration, fear, all looking for an outlet. Happens every day, says Miller, who has appeared beside you. Men packed too tight with nothing but their thoughts. Bad combination. He nods toward another part of camp where soldiers cluster around a man dealing cards. That's why gambling's so popular. Takes your mind off things. What about the drinking I've heard about, you ask, having noticed the absence of alcohol in camp. Miller snorts. Officers get their whiskey rations. Us regular folks, we make do with what we can find or smuggle in. Payday brings the sutlers with their overpriced hooch. Until then, it's this fine establishment. He gestures around at the dusty camp with mock grandeur. As darkness falls completely, men begin to retire to their tents. The day's exertions make sleep come easier than it did last night, despite the hard bunk and wool blanket that itches against your skin. Just as you're drifting off, a commotion startles you awake. Shouting, running feet. For a moment, you think it's a surprise attack, but the voices don't sound alarmed. They sound excited. New fish, someone calls. Fresh meat coming in. You follow Thomas and the others outside. A column of new recruits marches into camp, looking just as you must have yesterday: clean uniforms, uncertain faces, still carrying the look of civilians despite their military dress. God, were we that green? Thomas whispers. Greener, Miller replies with a chuckle. At least these poor bastards will have you to show them the ropes. The thought is startling, that after just one full day, you're already becoming a veteran compared to someone. The rate at which civilian men are transformed into soldiers is both disturbing and impressive. As the new recruits are assigned to companies, a low rumble of thunder sounds in the distance. The veterans immediately look up, their faces growing serious. "Rain coming," says Miller, sniffing the air. "Better check your gear. Make sure nothing's going to get soaked." You return to your tent, securing your belongings as best you can. The canvas shelter is supposedly waterproof, but the older men's concern suggests otherwise. You soon learn why, as the first heavy drops begin to fall, quickly turning into a downpour. Water immediately finds every seam and weak spot in the canvas. Small leaks appear, dripping onto bunks and equipment. Outside, the previously dusty paths between tents transform into mudslicks. Men rush to dig drainage ditches around their tents while others place precious items in the driest corners. "Welcome to the glamorous army life," Miller jokes as he positions his cup to catch a leak directly over his bunk. "Where even the sky is trying to kill you." The rain continues through the night, a constant drumming on canvas that makes sleep nearly impossible. By dawn, the entire camp is a quagmire of mud. Morning roll call is conducted under a steadily dripping sky, soldiers standing in ankle-deep muck. Breakfast is even less appetizing than usual, coffee watered down by rain, hardtack turning to mush. The day's training will continue regardless of weather, the sergeant informs you with obvious relish. "You think the Rebs are going to stop fighting because of a little rain?" he barks. "Weather's just another enemy to overcome." As you slosh through mud toward the drill field, Thomas slips and falls face-first into a puddle. When he rises, his once blue uniform is a uniform brown from chest to knees. "My ma's going to kill me," he mutters, trying unsuccessfully to wipe away the mud. "Spent 3 days sewing this uniform." "Your ma's not here," the sergeant says, overhearing. "And that mud might save your life." Shiny brass buttons make fine targets for rebel sharpshooters. The morning's drill is a special kind of misery, rifles that must be kept dry despite the rain, formations maintained in slippery mud, wool uniforms that grow heavier with every passing minute as they absorb water. By midday, you're soaked to the skin, chilled despite the summer temperature. Your hands raw and wrinkled. "Could be worse," says a veteran as you all huddle under a makeshift shelter during a brief break. "Winter in Virginia, now that's true misery. Mud so deep it swallows wagons whole. Men losing toes to frostbite. Give me summer rain any day." The rain finally lets up by afternoon, but the damage is done. The camp is transformed into a vast mud pit. Worse, you begin to hear coughing from various tents, the first sign of the colds and lung ailments that follow every soaking. That evening, as you try to dry your few possessions by a smoky fire, Miller sits beside you. He's been watching you throughout the day, you realize, not just you but all the new recruits, gauging who might have what it takes to survive. 2 days in, he says. "Still glad you joined up?" You consider the question seriously. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. You're damp, dirty, and hungry despite having eaten 3 meals. You've been shouted at, worked to exhaustion, and introduced to the grim realities of camp disease and sanitation. And yet, there's something else, too, a growing sense of belonging, of shared hardship creating bonds that civilian life rarely forges. When Thomas slipped in the mud, 3 men immediately moved to help him up. When rations were distributed, you saw veterans showing newcomers how to make the most of the meager offerings. "Ask me after I've seen battle," you finally reply. Miller nods, seeming to approve of the answer. "Smart. That's when you really know." He pokes at the fire with a stick, sending sparks into the darkening sky. Truth is, the fighting isn't even the hardest part for most. It's this. The waiting, the marching, the sickness. Battle, at least, happens fast. Camp life drags on forever. As night falls again, you settle into your damp bunk, listening to the sounds of the camp, men coughing, quiet conversations, someone softly playing a harmonica. Your second full day as a soldier is ending. And already, civilian life seems distant, almost unreal. Tomorrow, you learn, brings a new challenge, a practice march with full pack and equipment. The sergeants call it a little stroll of 15 miles. The veterans call it the first culling, the march that separates those who might survive from those who definitely won't. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder which group you'll fall into. Your body is already protesting the abuses of just 2 days. How will it handle 15 miles with 40 pounds of gear? How will it handle months of marching or the terror of battle? In your last conscious moments, you realize something has changed since yesterday. You're no longer just an observer in this strange world of the Civil War soldier. You're becoming a part of it, your body and mind adapting, however painfully, to its demands, and tomorrow will demand even more. The 15-mile march begins at dawn. Your stomach churns with a mixture of hunger and dread as you strap on your equipment, haversack with rations, canteen, cartridge box, and, most crucially, your knapsack. The veterans call it the elephant. And now you understand why. Loaded with your blanket, spare clothing, personal items, and share of company equipment, it feels like there's a small child sitting on your shoulders. Straighten those lines, the sergeant barks as your company forms up. This ain't a Sunday stroll. Show me your soldiers, not schoolgirls on a picnic. The sun hasn't even cleared the trees, but already sweat trickles down your back under the wool uniform. You adjust the straps of your knapsack one more time, trying to find some configuration that doesn't immediately send pain shooting through your shoulders. First mile's the easiest, Miller murmurs beside you. He's transformed his knapsack somehow, added leather reinforcements to the straps, and rigged a belt that transfers some weight to his hips. 10th mile separates the men from the boys. 15th mile separates the living from the dead. The drums begin, setting the marching pace, and your company moves out. The rhythm is brisk but not punishing, about 110 steps per minute, designed to cover ground efficiently while conserving energy in theory. Anyway, the first hour isn't so bad. The morning is cool, your legs are fresh, and there's a certain pride in being part of this long blue column snaking its way through the countryside. Flags flutter in the breeze. Officers ride alongside on horseback. And if you squint, it almost looks like those heroic paintings of armies on the march. Then reality sets in. By the second hour, the sun has climbed higher, beating down on your blue wool uniform. The dust kicked up by thousands of marching feet coats your face, clings to your sweaty skin, turns to mud in your mouth. There's no talking now. Every breath is precious, used only for the effort of putting one foot in front of the other. Water discipline, an officer calls as men begin reaching for canteens. 2 swallows every hour. We've got miles to go. You've already drained half your canteen, a rookie mistake. Now you'll have to ration what remains, your mouth growing drier with each dusty step. The third hour brings the first casualties, not from enemy fire, but from the march itself. A man collapses a dozen rows ahead, face purple from heat exhaustion. The column parts around him like a stream around a rock. 2 men drag him to the side of the road, or a medical wagon will eventually collect him if he's lucky. Eyes front, the sergeant shouts when heads turn to watch. Keep moving. Another man stumbles out of formation, vomiting into the ditch. He tries to rejoin the march but falls again. No one stops to help. The column has its own momentum now, a beast that can't be halted for individual suffering. Happens every march, Thomas pants beside you. His face is streaked with dust and sweat, his eyes glazed with fatigue. Sergeant says, if you fall out once, you'll fall out again. Says some men just ain't built for soldiering. You wonder what not built for soldiering means for those men: discharge, assignment to garrison duty, or just endless torment until they either toughen up or desert. By midday, your shoulders are on fire, raw beneath the straps of your knapsack. Each step sends a jolt of pain up your spine. Your feet, already blistered from previous days, now feel like they're being stabbed with each step, but you keep marching because stopping seems worse somehow. The column halts at a creek for a brief rest. Men collapse on the banks, shedding equipment, plunging faces into the cool water despite officers' warnings about disease. You ease your knapsack off with a groan, feeling blood rush back into your shoulders. Halfway there, Miller says, settling beside you. Unlike most, he seems barely winded, his movements economical, preserving energy. How are you holding up? You're too exhausted to lie. Don't think I can make another mile. Miller nods as if he expected this answer. From his haversack, he pulls out a small tin, opening it to reveal a brownish paste. Rub this on your shoulders and feet. Won't heal them, but it'll numb them enough to finish. The salve smells medicinal, with hints of camphor and something herbal. What is it, you ask, gingerly applying it to your raw skin. Stuff the Indians use. Traded a rebel prisoner my pocket watch for the recipe, Miller shrugs. Man makes do. The relief is almost immediate, not a cure, but a blessed dulling of the pain. By the time the drums signal resumption of the march, you feel like you might actually survive. The afternoon brings new challenges. The road narrows, forcing the column to compress. Now you're marching so close to the man in front that your rifle barrel is inches from his knapsack. The pace becomes uneven, hurry up and wait, running a few steps to close gaps, then standing still for minutes while some obstruction ahead is cleared. This is how most get killed, Miller tells you during one such halt. Not by bullets, by the march. Feet swell, can't get boots off. Infection sets in. Surgeon takes the leg. Then the fever takes the man. It's a cheerful thought to accompany the final miles. The sun is low when your company finally reaches the designated campsite. You've marched 15 miles with full gear, and every part of your body registers the achievement with pain. Men collapse where they stand, too exhausted to even set up tents. No rest yet, the sergeant's voice cuts through the fatigue. Camp needs setting up before dark. Move your asses. Somehow, you find the strength to help erect tents, gather firewood, and dig rudimentary latrines. The work is mechanical now, your body operating on some reserve of energy you didn't know existed. It's only when the essential tasks are complete that you're finally allowed to rest. You sink to the ground outside your tent, too tired to even remove your boots. Thomas collapses beside you, his face ashen beneath the sunburn and dirt. I can't feel my feet, he says. Is that bad? Take your boots off, Miller orders, appearing beside you. Both of you, now. The effort is excruciating. Your boots have molded to your swollen feet, and removing them feels like peeling off a layer of skin. When they finally come free, the smell is horrific, blood, sweat, and the beginning of infection. Miller examines Thomas's feet first, his expression grim. Trench foot starting. Lucky we're not marching tomorrow. He reaches into his haversack and pulls out a small bottle. Clean them with this, then air dry. No socks till morning. The liquid stings like fire, but you follow instructions, watching in horror as the water turns pink with blood from blisters you didn't even feel breaking. How do you know all this, you ask Miller as he checks your feet with professional detachment. 4th Regiment I've served in, he replies, applying his salve to the worst spots. First one, lost half my foot to gangrene. Learned my lesson. Take care of your feet, or you won't have feet to take care of. Evening brings a new kind of misery. Having pushed your body beyond its limits, you now can't sleep. Despite bone-deep exhaustion, every muscle throbs. Your shoulders feel flayed. Your feet pulse with pain. Around you, men groan, shift positions, seek comfort that doesn't exist on the hard ground. Sing something, Joe, someone calls from the darkness, and a tenor voice begins a slow, mournful rendition of Home Sweet Home. Other voices join in, creating a haunting chorus that spreads through the camp. You lie there, staring at the stars, listening to hundreds of homesick men sing about the place they'd rather be. Morning comes too soon but brings a blessed announcement, a day of rest before continuing the march. The officers call it tactical necessity. The enlisted men call it not wanting half the regiment to drop dead. You use the time to tend to your battered body. Following Miller's advice, you wash your one spare pair of socks and hang them to dry, mend a tear in your trousers, and, most importantly, soak your feet in the nearby creek. The cold water brings immediate relief, though the sight of your feet is alarming, blistered, bruised, with patches of angry red where infection threatens. Around you, dozens of other men are doing the same, comparing injuries like badges of honor. Got a beauty here, says a corporal, displaying a blister the size of a silver dollar. Going to name it after my ex-wife. Painful, swollen, and full of poison. The joke earns tired laughs. Humor, you're learning, is essential currency in the army, often dark, usually profane, but vital for maintaining sanity. By midday, you feel almost human again. The rest has worked wonders, and a meal of salt beef and hardtack, while hardly appetizing, restores some energy. You've even managed to forage some wild berries from the edge of camp, a tart burst of flavor that makes the hardtack almost palatable. Mail call. The announcement sends a ripple of excitement through the camp. This time, your name is called. A letter has caught up with you, forwarded from the training camp. The thin envelope feels like a treasure in your hands. You retreat to a quiet spot to read, savoring each word from home. The news is mundane local gossip, family updates, questions about army life, but it forms a lifeline to the world you left behind. You read it 3 times before carefully folding it into your breast pocket, close to your heart. Thomas wasn't so lucky. He hovers nearby, trying not to look disappointed. Nothing from Ma yet, he says, forcing a smile. Probably still on its way. You can share mine, you offer, and his face brightens as you read him the lighter parts of your letter. The afternoon brings more rest, but also preparation for the next day's march. Rumors swirl through camp, you're heading to Washington, or to Baltimore, or straight to Richmond to end the war in one decisive battle. No one really knows, and the officers aren't telling. Best not to know, Miller advises as you clean your rifle together. Each day has enough troubles without borrowing from tomorrow. That evening, something unexpected happens. A wagon arrives in camp, and with it comes fresh bread, a welcome change from hardtack, and, even more surprisingly, a barrel of dried apples. The sudden luxury lifts spirits throughout the camp. Special treat, explains the quartermaster sergeant as he supervises distribution. General's orders, says you boys did well on the march. The dried apples are tough and overly sweet, but after days of bland rations, they taste like the finest delicacy. Men savor each piece, trading portions of bread for extra fruit or vice versa, according to preference. First rule of army life, Miller says, watching the bartering with amusement. Enjoy the good when it comes. Never lasts long. As if to prove his point, the drums beat that evening, signaling assembly. Your company forms up, wondering what new demand awaits. The captain appears, his face serious. Men, our orders have changed, he announces. We march at first light, joining the main army near Culpeper. Intelligence suggests Confederate forces are massing in the area. A murmur runs through the ranks. Culpeper means Virginia. Virginia means the front lines. The front lines mean battle. Full marching order, the captain continues. 3 days rations, 60 rounds of ammunition per man. We'll cover 20 miles tomorrow, so rest well. The news transforms the camp. Men who were laughing over dried apples minutes ago are now somber, checking equipment, counting bullets, writing hasty letters home. The veterans seem particularly focused, their movements precise, almost ritualistic. Should I be worried? You ask Miller as you prepare your gear. He looks at you, his weathered face unreadable. Yes, he says finally, but not about dying. Not yet. He nods toward where Thomas sits, struggling to wrap hardtack in an oilcloth. Worry about the living. Battle's coming, and it'll change that boy forever. Change all of you. The man who marches into his first battle never marches out again. Someone else comes out wearing his face. You sleep poorly that night, Miller's words echoing in your mind. Around you, the camp is restless, men whispering, praying, some crying quietly in the darkness. The morning seems to arrive almost immediately, the bugle cutting through what little sleep you manage to find. The mood is different as you form up in the pre-dawn gloom. Gone is the grousing about sore muscles and bad food. In its place is a tense silence broken only by the necessary commands and the rhythmic stamp of boots as the column moves out. Today's march is faster, more purposeful. The officers push the pace, allowing fewer breaks. By noon, you've covered 12 miles. Your feet once again screaming in protest, but no one falls out today. The column moves with grim determination, each man knowing what awaits ahead. The countryside changes as you march south, more farms, fewer towns, and increasingly hostile looks from the few civilians you encounter. This is a different Virginia from the friendly environs of Washington's outskirts. Here, you are invaders, not defenders. Keep an eye on your gear, Miller warns during a brief halt. Locals will steal anything not nailed down. Had a boy in my last regiment wake up with his boots gone, marched barefoot for a week before quartermaster found replacements. As the day wears on, you begin to notice other changes: more cavalry scouts passing the column, signal officers on hilltops with flags, distant rumbles that might be thunder but probably aren't. Artillery, confirms a sergeant when someone asks. Still miles off. Nothing to worry about yet. Yet. The word hangs in the air, pregnant with meaning. By late afternoon, your company joins a larger encampment, part of the Army of the Potomac. Tens of thousands of men spread across rolling fields and woodlets. The scale is staggering. Tents and wagons stretch as far as you can see. Campfires dot the landscape like fallen stars. Flags of dozens of regiments flutter in the breeze. Home sweet home, Miller says as your company is directed to its assigned position, at least till the shooting starts. Setting up camp in the larger army is more orderly, more practiced. Each regiment has its place, each company its specific duties. By sundown, your small piece of the vast encampment is established, tents erected in neat rows, cooking fires burning steadily. The increased organization extends to rations as well. The company cooks have set up a proper field kitchen, and tonight's meal is almost palatable: beans with salt pork, fresh bread from the commissary wagons, and even coffee that tastes like coffee instead of boiled mud. Army runs better when it's all together, explains a corporal as you collect your portion. General staff watching everything makes the quartermaster honest and the cooks afraid of complaints. After eating, you explore the camp with Thomas, both of you wide-eyed at the martial city that is sprung up around you. Sutlers have established shops, selling everything from tobacco to writing paper at outrageous prices. A regimental band plays near headquarters. Men gather in groups, gambling, telling stories, cleaning weapons. But beneath the almost festive atmosphere, you sense tension. Veterans clean their rifles with methodical care. Officers huddle over maps. Ambulance wagons assemble in orderly rows, their purpose unmistakable. We're really going to fight, aren't we? Thomas asks as you make your way back to your company street, his voice losing its rural twang, flattened by fatigue and apprehension. Before you can answer, a new sound cuts through the evening air, a long roll of drums, not the usual camp signals, but something more urgent. Men jump to their feet all around you. Officers shouting commands that are swallowed in the sudden commotion. Fall in by companies. Your sergeant's voice rises above the din: full equipment, double quick. What's happening? Thomas asks, his face pale as you both run toward your tent. Nighttime march, says Miller, already buckling on his cartridge box. Rebs must be closer than we thought. Within minutes, your company is formed up, each man standing rigid in line, equipment checked and ready. The captain paces before you, his face tight with concentration as he awaits orders from regiment. They come in the form of a mounted courier who speaks briefly to the captain before galloping off to the next company. The captain turns to address the men, his voice steady but serious. We're moving out immediately, he announces. Confederate forces have engaged our advanced scouts near Brandy Station. We're to reinforce the line before dawn. He pauses, scanning the faces before him. This will be a forced march through the night. No straggling, no talking. We move fast and quiet. Those are the general's orders. A ripple passes through the company, not quite fear, but something close to it. Night marches are dangerous, even without the enemy nearby. Men trip in darkness, get lost, fall into ditches. Add the prospect of battle at the end, and the risk multiplies. Check your equipment one last time, the captain continues. We move in 5 minutes. As you adjust your straps and count your cartridges, you feel a strange calm descend. After days of training, marching, and preparation, the moment is finally here. No more wondering what kind of soldier you'll be. By tomorrow, you'll know. Stay close to me, Miller tells you and Thomas, his voice low. Do exactly as I do. Don't be heroes. Don't be cowards. Just be soldiers. The drums tap softly, signaling formation. Your company takes its place in the column, and without fanfare, the night march begins. Thousands of men moving through darkness, each step bringing you closer to the moment that will define your war, your first battle. Tomorrow, you'll learn if you're truly cut out to survive as a Civil War soldier, not just the marches, the bad food, the disease, but the thing they've been preparing you for all along, the moment when other men are actively trying to kill you. As you march through the Virginia night, stars cold and distant overhead, you wonder what version of yourself will exist when the sun rises again. The night march continues for hours, a ghostly column of men moving through darkness. No talking is allowed, but the sounds of an army on the move fill the night, thousands of boots on dirt roads, the creak of leather equipment, the occasional clink of metal against metal, and always the labored breathing of exhausted men. Your feet have gone beyond pain to a strange numbness. Your shoulders no longer register the weight of your knapsack. You've entered a dreamlike state where only the next step matters, your world narrowed to the shadowy form of the man marching in front of you. Just before dawn, the column halts in a wooded area. Orders are passed in whispers: shed knapsacks, keep weapons and ammunition, form battle lines. The calm efficiency of the veterans is unsettling. They don't speak, don't question, just methodically prepare for what's coming. Load your weapons, the sergeant orders, his voice barely audible. Percussion caps ready but not set. We move in 5 minutes. Your hands shake as you tear open a paper cartridge with your teeth, the bitter taste of gunpowder filling your mouth. Pour the powder down the barrel, ram the ball home, place the percussion cap. Each step you've practiced hundreds of times, but never with the knowledge that these bullets might soon be fired at actual human beings. Thomas struggles beside you, dropping a cartridge in the dim light. I can't, he whispers, his voice cracking. Miller kneels beside him, steady hands guiding Thomas through the loading process. Just like drill, he murmurs. Nothing different. Your hands know what to do, even if your mind doesn't. The first light of dawn filters through the trees as your company moves forward, part of a battle line stretching through the woods. You can hear distant popping sounds now, skirmishers exchanging fire somewhere ahead. Occasionally, a deeper boom suggests artillery. The company emerges from the woods into a rolling field of wheat, golden in the early light. In another context, it might be beautiful. Now, it's just open ground you'll have to cross under fire. Forward, march. The command passes down the line, and the company steps into the wheat, rifles at the ready. You're in the second row of the formation. Ahead of you, a lieutenant walks backward, keeping the line straight with quiet commands: dress right. Keep your intervals. Steady pace. The distant popping grows louder. You can see smoke now, hanging over a tree line about half a mile ahead. The skirmishers are falling back, running through the wheat toward your advancing line. One falls suddenly, as if he's tripped, but he doesn't get up. Steady, boys, the sergeant calls. Keep your line. A sound tears through the air above you, a weird shrieking whistle that ends in a solid thump as something hits the ground behind your company. Earth and wheat spray upward. Artillery, says Miller, his voice flat. They're ranging us. Another whistle, another explosion, this one closer. Men instinctively duck but keep marching. The formation is still intact, still advancing at that same steady pace through the golden wheat. Then you see them, gray-clad figures emerging from the distant tree line, forming their own battle line. The enemy, real Confederate soldiers, not targets or imaginary foes from drill, but actual men with guns who want to kill you. Company, halt. The command freezes you in place. Ready arms. You raise your rifle, suddenly aware of how exposed you are in this open field. The wheat only reaches your knees, no concealment, no protection. Aim. You settle the sights on the gray line, now about 300 yards away and closing. You can't make out individual faces at this distance, just a mass of men moving toward you with deadly purpose. Fire. The company's volley crashes out, your own rifle bucking against your shoulder. Smoke immediately obscures your vision, the acrid smell of burnt powder filling your nostrils. Through the haze, you can't tell if you hit anyone. There's no time to wonder. You're already reaching for another cartridge, beginning the loading process again. Load! Load, load, the sergeant shouts, moving behind the line. Your training takes over, tear cartridge, pour powder, ram ball, place cap. All while trying to watch the enemy through drifting smoke, trying to ignore the whistling artillery shells that are now landing with terrifying regularity. The company fires another volley, and another. The Confederate line has halted now, returning fire. You hear the distinctive whine of mini-balls passing overhead, a sound veterans describe as angry bees. Some don't pass overhead but find human targets instead. A man to your left grunts and sits down suddenly, a look of surprise on his face as blood spreads across his thigh. Close up the line, the sergeant orders, and you shuffle left, filling the gap. Time loses meaning. You're caught in a mechanical cycle: load, aim, fire, load again. The smoke becomes so thick you can barely see the enemy, aiming more at muzzle flashes than actual targets. Your ears ring from the constant gunfire, making the sergeant's commands seem distant, underwater. A new sound rises above the gunfire, a high, wailing cry that sends chills down your spine. The rebel yell. The gray line is charging. Fix bayonets. The order passes down your line. Hands fumble to attach the long blades to rifle barrels. Stand fast. Stand fast. The Confederate charge closes the distance rapidly, their line emerging from the smoke like avenging ghosts. At 100 yards, your company fires a devastating volley that tears gaps in their line. At 50 yards, you fire again, the effect even more terrible at this range, but they keep coming. The final moments before impact are a blur. You fire one last desperate shot, then suddenly there upon you a crash of bodies, rifle barrels, bayonets. The neat formation dissolves into chaotic individual struggles. A bearded Confederate lunges at you, his bayonet missing your chest by inches. You swing your rifle like a club, connecting with his shoulder. He staggers but doesn't fall, raising his weapon for another thrust. Miller appears beside you, driving his bayonet into the man's side. The Confederate crumples with a strange, soft cry that will haunt your dreams for years. Keep moving. Miller shouts, already turning to face another threat. Don't stand still. The hand-to-hand fighting lasts only minutes but feels like hours. The Confederate charge falters, breaks, then reverses as more Union troops arrive to reinforce your line. The gray soldiers retreat toward the tree line, pursued by cheering bluecoats. But not you. Your company has been ordered to hold position, to reform its shattered line. As the adrenaline fades, you become aware of the aftermath around you. Men lying in the trampled wheat, some moving, crying for help, others ominously still. The golden field is now stained red in patches. Thomas is on his knees nearby, vomiting, his face blackened with powder, his eyes wide with shock, but he appears uninjured. Others weren't so fortunate. The company has visibly shrunk, gaps in the line where men stood just minutes ago. Check your ammunition, the sergeant orders, moving among the survivors. We're not done yet. He's right. The battle continues elsewhere. You can hear heavy firing to your left, where another Union division is engaged. Artillery still thunders, though it's no longer targeting your position. Stretcher bearers move through the wheat, collecting the wounded. The rest of the day passes in a series of advances and halts, sporadic firing at distant targets, long periods of tense waiting. The major battle seems to have shifted elsewhere, your company now a small piece in a complex chess game played across miles of Virginia countryside. By late afternoon, it's clear the Union forces have carried the day. Confederate units are withdrawing across the board, pursued cautiously by blue columns. Your company, having suffered heavily in the morning engagement, is held in reserve as fresher troops lead the pursuit. As dusk approaches, you finally have time to process what you've experienced. Your uniform is stiff with dried sweat and powder residue. Your hands are black from gunpowder. Your right shoulder bruised from rifle recoil. You fired approximately 40 rounds over the course of the day, though whether you actually hit anyone remains mercifully unknown. The company establishes a hasty camp near the morning's battlefield. There's no energy for proper tense. Most men simply drop where they're told, using knapsacks as pillows. The day's fighting has left everyone hollow-eyed and silent, the usual camp banter replaced by thousand-yard stares. Eat something, Miller advises, handing you a piece of hardtack. Doesn't matter if you're not hungry. Your body needs it. You chew mechanically, the familiar, tasteless cracker now seeming even more unappetizing. Thomas sits nearby, still hasn't spoken since the fighting. He stares at his hands as if they belong to someone else. Will he be all right? You ask Miller quietly. The veteran studies Thomas for a moment. Maybe. First battle hits everyone different. Some talk too much, some don't talk at all. Give him time. As night falls completely, you realize something has changed within you. The fear isn't gone, if anything, having seen combat, you're more afraid than before. But it's a different kind of fear, more focused, less paralyzing. You've seen the worst and survived, at least this time. Sleep comes in fits and starts, interrupted by vivid flashes of the day's fighting and the moans of wounded men in nearby field hospitals. The medical tents operate through the night, lanterns casting grotesque shadows as surgeons work tirelessly on broken bodies. Morning reveals the true cost of battle. Your company musters at dawn, the gaps in the ranks painfully obvious in daylight. The captain reads the casualty list: 12 dead, 23 wounded, 5 missing from a company that numbered nearly 100 just days ago. These losses are significant. The names wash over you, some familiar, others just faces you can barely recall. Each represents a man who was breathing, hoping, fearing just hours ago. Now, they're statistics in what the newspapers will call a sharp engagement, not even important enough to be remembered as a major battle. We'll be moving out within the hour, the captain announces, folding the casualty list. The enemy is retreating toward Culpeper. We're to pursue and harass their rear guard. No time to bury the dead, that's left to designated burial details. No time to properly tend the wounded, they're evacuated to field hospitals miles behind the lines. The army moves on, the war machine rolling forward relentlessly. As your company prepares to march, Thomas finally speaks. I killed someone yesterday, he says, his voice barely audible. Shot him right in the face at 20 yards. Could see his expression change and everything. You don't know what to say. What words could possibly address such an experience? You did what you had to, Miller tells him, checking Thomas's rifle with practiced hands. Same as he was trying to do to you. Don't dwell on it, or you'll go mad. The march resumes, your depleted company now part of a massive Union force flowing south like a blue river. The mood is different, no longer the nervous anticipation of men heading to their first battle, but the grim determination of soldiers who know exactly what awaits them. The pursuit lasts 3 days, a strange mirror of your earlier march, but with key differences. Now you move through landscapes transformed by war, burned farmhouses, trampled fields, hastily dug graves marking the Confederate retreat. Civilians have largely fled, leaving an eerie emptiness to the countryside. On the third day, rain begins, a steady, soaking downpour that turns roads to mud and streams to raging torrents. The pursuit slows, then halts as bridges wash out and supply wagons bog down. Your company finds itself assigned to guard a critical crossroads, watching for enemy cavalry while engineers attempt to repair a collapsed bridge. The rain continues without pause. Tents offer minimal protection as water finds every seam and weakness. The ground beneath becomes a sodden mess, forcing you to sleep sitting up against trees or rocks. Food is scarce, supply wagons can't navigate the mud-choked roads, leaving you with whatever remains of your emergency rations. Welcome to the real army of the Potomac, Miller says as you huddle beneath a dripping tree. March in the mud, fight in the mud, sleep in the mud, then do it all again tomorrow. By the 4th day, cases of illness begin to appear. Men who survived battle fall victim to exposure and exhaustion. Fevers spread through the camp. The regiment's surgeon, already overwhelmed with battle casualties, now faces a new wave of patients. Your own health remains surprisingly good, perhaps because of Miller's herbal concoctions, or perhaps simply due to luck. Thomas, however, develops a hacking cough that grows worse each day. Just a cold, he insists when you suggest he see the surgeon. Save the medicine for the really sick boys. On the 5th day, orders finally arrive. The pursuit is abandoned. Confederate forces have escaped across the Rapidan River, establishing new defensive positions that would be too costly to assault directly. Your regiment is to march to a place called Stevensburg, there to establish a more permanent camp while generals plot the next campaign. The march to Stevensburg is a nightmare of mud and misery. Men lose boots to the sucking earth, then continue barefoot rather than fall behind. Wagons must be literally dug out of mud holes every few hundred yards. Rain continues to fall, turning even the simplest tasks into trials of endurance. Thomas collapses 2 miles from the destination, his fever so high you can feel the heat radiating from his skin. You and Miller carry him the rest of the way, his body seemingly weightless despite your own exhaustion. The regimental surgeon examines him with a brief, practiced efficiency that reveals how many such cases he's seen. Pneumonia, he diagnoses. Get him to the hospital tent. We'll do what we can. What they can do, it turns out, is very little. Medicine in 1862 has few answers for pneumonia. They administer quinine for the fever, apply mustard plasters to his chest, and, most importantly, keep him dry and as comfortable as possible in a crowded hospital tent. You visit whenever duties permit, watching Thomas grow weaker by the day. His cough deepens, bringing up alarming amounts of blood-tinged phlegm. His breathing becomes labored, each inhalation a visible struggle. "Write to my ma," he asks during a moment of clarity, his voice a faint whisper. "Tell her I wasn't afraid in the battle. She'll want to know that." "You'll write her yourself," you insist, trying to sound confident. "You'll be marching again in no time." He smiles faintly, not believing you but appreciating the effort. "Just make sure she knows," he says before falling into an exhausted sleep. That night, a different battle rages in the hospital tent, not against Confederate soldiers, but against disease. 3 men die before dawn, their bodies quietly removed to make space for new patients. Thomas survives, but barely, his breathing growing more labored with each passing hour. The next morning brings an unexpected blessing, sunshine. After nearly a week of relentless rain, the clouds part, allowing the first warm rays to dry the sodden landscape. The effect on camp morale is immediate and profound. Men emerge from tents like hibernating animals, spreading damp blankets and clothing on every available surface. Even the hospital benefits from the weather change. Tent flaps are rolled up, allowing fresh air to replace the miasma of sickness and disinfectant. Thomas's cot is moved to catch a patch of sunlight, the warmth seeming to ease his breathing slightly. "Good sign," Miller says, "visiting with you." Sun kills the bad humors. Always more deaths during rainy spells. For 2 days, the weather holds, and with it comes a gradual improvement in Thomas's condition. His fever breaks. His cough, while still present, brings up clear phlegm instead of bloody discharge. The surgeon, making his rounds, nods with satisfaction. "He'll live," he says. Whether he'll fight again is another question. Lungs may never be the same. While Thomas recovers, the regiment establishes a proper camp at Stevensburg, not the hasty bivouac of an army on the move, but a semi-permanent installation with orderly streets, proper latrines, and even a crude shower system rigged by enterprising engineers. Your company, still under strength from battle casualties and illness, is assigned to picket duty rather than the more strenuous task of building fortifications. Each day, you march to the outer perimeter of the Union position, there to watch for enemy movement and provide early warning of any Confederate approach. Picket duty has its own unique stress. You stand for hours at the edge of woods or fields, staring into the middle distance, jumping at every rustle of leaves or snap of twigs. Confederate pickets do the same, often just a few hundred yards away. Occasionally, shots are exchanged, more from nervousness than actual targets. Worst part of soldiering, Miller opines during one such watch. Rather have a proper fight than this waiting. Makes the mind play tricks. After a week, Thomas is released from the hospital, pale and thin but alive. He's given light duty around camp while he regains his strength. The experience has changed him, the boyish enthusiasm replaced by a quiet thoughtfulness that makes him seem years older. "Doctor says I might get sent home if my lungs don't improve," he tells you one evening as you clean your rifle. Medical discharge. "That's good, isn't it?" you ask. "See your family again." sleep in a real bed. He shrugs, his expression conflicted. Feels wrong somehow. Leaving you all behind, like I'm running away. Getting sick isn't running away, you say firmly. You stood your ground in battle. Nobody can say different. Thomas doesn't seem convinced, but the conversation is interrupted by the arrival of the mail wagon, a highlight of camp life that temporarily pushes all other concerns aside. This time, Thomas receives a thick package from home, along with several letters. His face lights up as he recognizes his mother's handwriting. The package contains knitted socks, a small fruitcake miraculously intact despite its journey, and dried apples. Thomas insists on sharing everything, his generosity extending to the entire tent. That night, your corner of camp feels almost civilized as you feast on home-baked cake and red letters aloud by lantern light. 2 days later, news spreads through camp, reinforcements have arrived, fresh troops to fill the gaps in depleted companies. Your company receives 15 new men, mostly fresh recruits with a few veterans transferred from other units. Among them is a slight, dark-haired boy who can't be more than 16 despite his insistence that he's 19. He's assigned to your tent, taking the space left vacant by a man killed in the recent battle. Name's William Jenkins, he introduces himself, voice cracking with adolescent uncertainty. From Pennsylvania. Is it true you all fought at Brandy Station? Just like that, you realize you've crossed an invisible line. To this boy, you're a battle-hardened veteran, someone to be respected and perhaps feared a little. The fact that you've survived exactly one battle and barely understand what happened in it doesn't matter. You've seen the elephant, as soldiers say. You belong to a different category of human now. We were there, you confirm, seeing no need to elaborate on your limited experience. What's it like? Jenkins asks, eyes wide. Being in a real battle. You glance at Thomas, who suddenly finds something fascinating to examine in his boot. Miller watches silently, letting you handle this moment of initiation. It's not like anything they tell you, you finally say. It's louder, more confusing. You don't see much through the smoke. You load and fire because everyone else is loading and firing. And afterward, you struggle to find words for the hollow feeling that followed battle. Afterward, you're just glad to be counting toes instead of holes in your body. Jenkins looks disappointed with this unromantic description, but before he can ask more questions, the bugle sounds assembly. New orders have arrived. The regiment is moving again. As you form up with the company, you realize something fundamental has changed. The man who arrived at training camp just weeks ago is gone. In his place stands someone different, still afraid, still unsure of what the future holds, but somehow more solid, more present in this strange world of the Civil War. You've survived your first battle. You've watched disease claim more lives than bullets. You've felt the unique brotherhood that forms when men face death together. Whether you're a good soldier or merely a lucky one remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, you're no longer just playing at war. You're living it with all its terror, boredom, misery, and occasional moments of transcendent connection. As the regiment moves out toward its next appointment with history, you take your place in the column, not a civilian in uniform anymore, but a soldier who's beginning to understand what that really means. The first snowflake falls like a tiny white flag of surrender. You catch it on your palm, watching it melt instantly against your skin. More follow, dancing in the wind before disappearing into the cold Virginia soil. Going to be a bad one, Miller pronounces, studying the gray sky with a weathered man's instinct. Best get to it while the ground's still soft. It's November 1862, and your regiment has established winter quarters near Falmouth, Virginia, across the Rappahannock River from Fredericksburg. The fall campaign season is ending, both armies seeking refuge from the coming winter. For the next few months, battle will give way to a different fight, the struggle against cold, boredom, and the creeping despair that claims more soldiers than enemy bullets ever could. Winter quarters means building actual shelters, not just pitching tents. The entire regiment has transformed into a construction crew, teams of men cutting timber from nearby forests, digging foundations, building chimneys from local stone and clay. Your own squad, you, Miller, Thomas, whose lungs have improved enough to keep him with the regiment, and young Jenkins, works methodically on your winter home. Following Miller's experienced direction, you've dug a rectangular pit about 18 inches deep, 4 feet wide, and 8 feet long. Deeper we dig, warmer we'll be, Miller explains, showing Jenkins how to square the corners. Heat rises, cold drops. You want to be below ground level. Around this foundation, you build walls of logs notched at the corners to fit snugly together. It's hard work, especially with limited tools. The regiment has few proper axes, and you make do with a dull hatchet and a borrowed spade. Your hands, once soft from civilian life, are now calloused and cracked, but stronger than you ever imagined they could be. Mud between the logs, Miller instructs, mixing clay soil with water to create a primitive mortar. Pack it tight. Every gap means cold air visiting uninvited. The hardest part is the chimney. With no brick available, you create a base of stones, then extend upward with a wooden frame lined with clay. It's a precarious design that will require constant maintenance to prevent fires, but it's the best that can be managed with available materials. First snow's always a warning, Thomas says, pausing to catch his breath. His lungs, while improved, still trouble him in the cold air. My pa used to say, God sends it early to remind fools to prepare. By nightfall, the snow is falling steadily, transforming the landscape into something alien and beautiful. Your hut is barely half finished, walls up, but no proper roof yet, just your tent canvas stretched across the top to keep out the worst of the snow. You sleep in the unfinished shelter anyway, huddled together for warmth, your breath visible in the cold air. The temperature drops through the night, and you wake repeatedly, shivering despite your blanket and greatcoat. By morning, a thin layer of snow covers your blankets where breath condensed and froze. Welcome to winter campaign, Miller says, his beard frosted with ice. Summers for fighting, winters for surviving. The next day brings more snow, but also unexpected help. A nearby cavalry unit, better supplied than your infantry regiment, trades surplus tools for infantry assistance with their horse shelters. With proper axes and saws now available, work progresses rapidly. By the third day, your winter hut is taking proper shape. The walls stand about 6 feet high, the roof is framed with pine saplings, and the chimney draws reasonably well, filling the small space with blessed warmth from a carefully tended fire. Need a door next, Miller says, surveying your work with critical eyes. Something that actually keeps the cold out, not just a blanket over the opening. You salvage boards from hardtack boxes, nailing them together to create a crude but effective door hung on leather hinges. Jenkins shows unexpected talent for detail work, carefully filling gaps with clay and moss to prevent drafts. Worked in my uncle's carpentry shop summers, he explains when you comment on his skill. Never thought I'd be building my own house in the middle of a war. For that's what these structures are becoming, not just shelters, but homes. Throughout the regiment's camp, similar huts rise from the snowy ground, each reflecting the personality and ingenuity of its inhabitants. Some are plain wooden boxes, while others show surprising architectural flourishes, porches, decorative chimneys, even glass windows salvaged from abandoned farmhouses. Soldiers make do, Thomas observes, admiring a particularly elaborate hut where someone has created actual shingles from split wood. Give a soldier nothing but dirt and sticks, he'll build you a palace and complain it.